Hi everyone, I hope you all are well. Thank you for joining me this evening for Candlelight Vinyasa Yoga. My name is Julia and I'll be guiding you through your practice today. We'll start with the William and Mary waiver. In order to make these classes as freely accessible to our participants, we will be using a verbal warning and assumption of risk at the beginning of the class. Participation in this online class is voluntary. Physical activity programs may result in injury, and by participating, you assume the risk of injury that may result from your participation. We strongly recommend that you participate from a space that is suitable for this activity. For example, make sure that you have moved nearby furniture and other potential hazards. If you are participating in a yoga class or a class that involves laying on the ground, we recommend using a mat, or if you don't have one, a carpeted area. Participants are encouraged to stop if they experience pain or injury and should seek appropriate medical advice or care as needed. William and Mary Health and Wellness strongly recommends that each participant have an annual physical examination and follow the advice of your healthcare provider before participating. Okay, so today let's get started in a seated position on the mat. Sitting up nice and tall, drawing the shoulder blades down the back, reaching through the crown of the head, stacking your shoulders over your hips, and placing your palms on your thighs, allowing the gaze to soften or the eyes to close. And just noticing your natural breath at this point, not judging it and not trying to change it. And let's empty all the breath out of our lungs, starting on empty. And inhaling for 4, 3, 2, 1, and hold. Exhale for 4, 3, 2, 1, and hold. Inhale 4, 3, 2, 1, hold. Exhale 4, 3, 2, 1, hold. Inhale 4, 3, 2, 1. Exhale 4, 3, 2, 1. Inhale 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Exhale 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Inhale 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Exhale 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Inhale 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Exhale 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Inhale 4, 3, 2, 1. Exhale 4, 3, 2, 1. Inhale 4, 3, 2, 1. Exhale 4, 3, 2, 1. Feel free to continue this counting breath, this elevator breath at your own pace, or just move into whatever breath pattern feels best to you. Feel free to join me in moving into Ujjayi breath, slightly constricting the back of the throat, breathing in and out through the nose, creating a bit of an ocean sound. Blinking the eyes open, switching the crossing of the legs. Reaching through the crown of the head and bringing your right ear towards your right shoulder. Come through center, bring the left ear towards the left shoulder. Right ear to right shoulder. Slowly coming through center, left ear to left shoulder. Back to center. Reach your arms up towards the ceiling, shoulder blades gliding down the back. Side stretching over to the right, keeping this weight even between the sits bones, keeping space between the shoulders and the ears. Through center and to the left, opening up the chest. Through center and over to the right, maybe going a little bit deeper. And once more to the left. Back to center and twisting from the core over to the right, keeping the chin over the chest. Coming back through center, twisting to the left. Through center and twisting over to the right. And once more to the left. Back to center. Lower your arms down and make your way into tabletop. Stacking your shoulders over your wrists and your hips over your knees, feet directly behind your knees. Dipping the back, bringing the gaze forward for cow. Rounding the spine, tucking the chin for cat. And bringing your hips towards your heels, as if you were coming into child's pose. Coming onto your forearms and pulling through with a dipped back to cow bow. Coming up on the hands to cow. Rounding the spine, cat. Lowering the hips. Pulling through to cow bow. Up to cow. Moving through this cycle at your own pace for a few more cycles. And meet in neutral tabletop. Pressing your hands into the mat and pressing the tops of your feet into the mat, engaging the core and hovering the knees just a couple inches off of the mat. Lower your knees back down. Take a full breath cycle. Once again, hovering the knees a couple inches off the mat. Lower. And one more time, hover. And lower back down. Open up towards the right, reaching your right arm up towards the ceiling as we prepare for thread the needle. Threading the right arm through just to a hover. Reaching back up towards the ceiling, threading through just to a hover. Reaching back up towards the ceiling, and this time threading the needle through all the way, resting your shoulder and the side of your head on the mat, and pressing your left hand into the mat overhead. Keeping the hips even towards the top of the mat. Press your left hand into the mat, opening up towards the right. Lower the right hand down, opening up towards the left. Threading through just to a hover. Extend. Threading through to a hover. Extend. This time threading through all the way, resting your shoulder and the side of your head on the mat and pressing your right hand into the mat right above your head. Press your right hand into the mat, open up towards the left. Lower your left hand to the mat. Flip your right palm over, touching each fingertip to your thumb. And reverse. Ball up your fist, straighten the elbow a little bit, and shake it out. Flipping the left palm over, touching each fingertip to your thumb, and reverse. Ball up your fist, straighten the elbow a little bit, and shake it out. Press both hands into the mat, tuck your toes, lift the knees, send the hips back to downward facing dog. Really pedaling the knees out, pedaling the feet out. Bringing your chest towards your thighs, releasing the head and shoulders, nodding the head yes, shaking the head no. Coming up on the toes, bending the knees and straightening the legs as you bring your heels closer to the mat. Finding stillness. Bring the gaze to the top of the mat and slowly walk your way to the top of the mat and forward fold. Generously bending the knees, hips over your ankles, and grounding through the feet as you slowly come up with a flat back, reaching your arms up overhead and upward salute. Drawing your hands through heart center to Tadasana, mountain pose. In mountain pose, grounding through the three corners of the feet, which are below the big toe mound, the little toe mound, and the heel, drawing up through the kneecaps, externally rotating the shoulders, sending energy through the fingertips, reaching through the crown of the head, stacking your shoulders over your hips, over your ankles. Upward salute, reaching your arms overhead, soft bend in the knees as we fold forward from the hip creases with a flat back. Uttanasana, forward fold. Halfway lift, tracing the fingertips up the shins with a flat back. Ardha Uttanasana. Back to fold. Plant your hands on the mat, step back to plank. Lower your knees onto the mat, untuck your toes, and keep your elbows hugging in by your side as you lower all the way down to the mat, resting your forehead on the mat. Pressing the tops of the feet into the mat, legs engaged, kneecaps lift. Without any weight in the hands, inhale, peel the chest off the mat, gaze lowered. Bhujangasana, baby cobra. Exhale, lower, press your hands into the mat, tuck the toes, meeting in downward dog. Bring the gaze to the top of the mat, slowly walking forward to fold. And reaching all the way up with a flat back. Hands through heart center, Tadasana. Upward salute, soft bend in the knees, forward fold. Halfway lift, back to fold. Plant your hands on the mat, step back to plank. Stacking your shoulders over your wrists, reaching through the crown of the head and pressing back through your heels. Core engaged, navel drawing in towards the rib cage. Amazing job. Lower the knees, untuck the toes, lower all the way down. Minimal weight in the hands as you inhale, peel the chest off the mat. Cobra. Exhale, lower. Tuck the toes, send the hips back to downward dog. Lifting the left leg to three-legged dog, dialing the pinky toe to point towards the mat to level out the hips. Bend the left knee, draw the left knee in towards the chest and plant the left foot. Lower the back knee, untuck the back toes. And we're in low lunge with the front knee stacked over your ankle, left hip drawing back, right hip drawing forward. Beginning to straighten the front leg a little bit, into runner's lunge. Flexing and pointing the toes. Coming forward to low lunge and moving through low lunge and runner's lunge at your own pace. We'll meet in low lunge. You can stay here or you can bring one hand and then the other onto the thigh, reaching your arms overhead. Plant your hands on the mat, framing the foot, and open up towards the left for a twist. Counter the twist, opening up towards the right. Plant your hands on the mat, tuck the back toes, lift the back knee. Extending your left leg back to three-legged dog and lowering your toes down to the mat. Lift your right leg to three-legged dog. Bend the knee, draw it in towards the chest and plant the right foot. Lower the back knee, untuck the back toes. Low lunge with your knee stacked over your ankle. Right hip drawing back, left hip drawing forward. Straightening the front leg for runner's lunge. Shifting between low lunge and runner's lunge. Meeting in low lunge. Reaching your arms up overhead. And planting your hands on the mat, opening up towards the right for a twist. Lower your right hand back to the mat, tuck the back toes, lift the knee, send the right leg back to downward dog, bring the gaze to the top of the mat, making your way into forward fold, and reaching your arms up towards the ceiling, drawing the hands through to heart center. Feel free to grab water anytime. And with your hands at heart center, let's sit back into chair pose, Utkatasana. You should still be able to see the tips of your toes, keeping the chest nice and lifted, sinking the hips a little bit deeper. You can stay here with your hands at heart center or extend your arms overhead. Great job. Let's forward fold, halfway lift, back to fold. Plant your hands on the mat, step back to plank, and you can either lower all the way down and take cobra, or you can come forward on the toes, lower halfway to chaturanga, and pull through to upward facing dog with your hips and your knees up off the mat, gaze forward. And we'll all meet in downward dog. Reaching your left hand towards your right ankle for a twist. And your right hand to your left ankle. Back to center. Lift the left leg, planting the left foot, and coming up to high lunge, crescent lunge, with your hips facing forward, front knee stacked over your ankle, up on the ball of the back foot, arms overhead. Coming into a twist, reaching your right arm forward and the left arm back. Come back to center. Framing the foot with your hands, open up towards the left for a twist. Keeping your knees tracking over your ankle. Counter the twist. Plant both hands on the mat, step back to downward dog, lifting the right knee. the right leg, planting the right foot, and coming up to Crescent Lunge. Once again, hips facing forward, front knee stacked over ankle, arms overhead. Twisting from the core, left arm coming forward, right arm coming back. Back to center. Framing the foot and opening up towards the right for a twist. Counter the twist. Plant both hands on the mat and step forward to forward fold. Reaching your arms up towards the ceiling, drawing your hands to heart center. Sitting down into chair pose. Twisting from the core over to the right and hooking your elbow on the outer edge of your right thigh, keeping your knees even. Shifting the weight, or maybe sinking the hips a little bit deeper, shifting the weight into your right leg and stepping back with the left foot to lunge. Opening up, planting your left hand on the mat, and stepping back to side plank. If you need to modify, you can lower your knee, create a kickstand. Make sure that you're lifting the hips nice and high. Amazing job. Just a few more seconds here. Lowering down to plank. Take a flow of your choice, anything we've done so far, or you can even do cat and cow or child's pose. And we'll meet in downward dog. Lower your knees to the mat, untuck your toes, send your hips to your heels, resting your forehead on the mat in child's pose. Lift the hips, tuck the toes. Step or hop to the top of the mat. Upward salute. Drawing your hands to heart center. Sitting down into chair pose. Twisting over to the left, hooking your right elbow to the outer edge of your left thigh. Shifting the weight into the left leg and stepping back with the right foot into lunge. Planting your right hand on the mat and stepping back to side plank, taking any variation that you prefer. Lower down to plank, take a vinyasa flow of your choice, and we'll meet in downward dog. Lower your knees to the mat, untuck the toes, bring your hips to your heels, resting your forehead on the mat in child's pose. Lifting the hips, tucking the toes, lift the hips back to downward dog, and step or float to the top of the mat. Reaching your arms up towards the ceiling, drawing your hands through to Tadasana, coming right back up to upward salute, forward fold, halfway lift, back to fold. Plant your hands on the mat, step back to plank, take a flow of your choice, meeting in downward dog. Lift your left leg to three-legged dog, planting your left foot And planting your right foot as well so that your feet are about hip width apart. Coming up to warrior one with your hips angled towards the top of the mat. Front knee stacked over ankle, arms up overhead. Interlacing your hands behind your back with the left thumb on top, elbows bent and reaching towards one another. Reaching through the crown of the head and folding forward from the hip creases to humble warrior. So your left shoulder is coming towards the inside of your right knee. And if you'd like, you can extend your arms overhead for a shoulder stretch. Bend the elbows, bring your hands to your hips, ground through the feet as you come all the way up with a flat back, reaching your arms overhead. And reaching your right arm forward, left arm back, coming into a twist. Back to center, plant your hands on the mat, step back to downward dog. Lifting the left leg, planting the left foot, feet about hip width apart, coming up to warrior one. Interlacing your hands with the right thumb on top. Reaching through the crown of the head and folding forward to humble warrior. Option to extend your arms overhead. Bend the elbows, bring your hands to your hips, slowly coming all the way up, reaching your arms overhead. And bringing your right arm forward, left arm back to twist. Back to center, plant your hands on the mat, and step back to downward dog. Lower your knees to the mat, untuck your toes, child's pose. Lift the hips, tuck the toes. Step or float to the top of the mat. Upward salute. Tadasana, reaching back up and folding forward. Halfway lift. Back to fold. Plant your hands on the mat, step back to plank. Take a vinyasa flow of your choice and meet in downward dog. Lift the left leg, bend the knee and open up the hips this time, stacking one on top of the other, keeping the weight evenly distributed between your arms, drawing circles with the ankle. Switch direction. Square the hips, draw the knee in towards the chest, plant the left foot, plant the right foot as well so your front heel is aligned with the back arch. Windmilling the arms up to warrior two. Stacking your shoulders over your hips, front knee stacked over your ankle, grounding through the outer edge of the back foot, arms out to a T, gaze forward. Flip the front palm, reverse your warrior. Back to warrior two. Take a short step in with the back foot, straighten both legs, bump out your back hip, reaching forward, lowering the fingertips to triangle. Keeping the gaze lowered at your foot, or you can tuck the chin and bring your gaze to your extended upper arm, really opening up the chest, creating space between the shoulders and the ears. And using the strength of your core to lift yourself back up. Windmill the arms down to the mat, step back to downward dog, lift the right leg, bend the knee, open up the hips, Drawing circles with the ankle. And switch direction. Squaring the hips, bend the knee towards the chest, planting both feet, front heel to back arch. Windmill the hands up to warrior two. Gliding the shoulder blades down the back. Flip the front palm, reverse your warrior. Back to warrior two. Take a short step in, straightening both legs, bump out your back hip, reach forward, lower the fingertips to your shin for triangle. Really opening up the chest. And using your core to lift yourself back up to standing, windmill the arms down to the mat, step back to downward dog. Lower the knees to the mat, untuck your toes, taking child's pose. All right, lift the hips, tuck the toes, downward dog, step or float to the top of the mat. Reaching up towards the ceiling. Drawing your hands through heart center to Tadasana. Once again, upward salute, folding forward. Halfway lift, back to fold. Plant your hands on the mat, step back to plank. Choose your own adventure, whatever Vinyasa flow you want to do. And meet in downward dog. Lift the left leg to three-legged dog, planting both feet, windmilling the arms up to warrior two. Reaching forward and lowering your left elbow to your left thigh, reaching your right arm overhead, coming into extended side angle. Really opening up the chest, again creating space between the shoulders and the ears. Really grounding through the outer edge of the back foot. And moving through reverse warrior and extended side angle for a few rounds at your own pace. Meeting in warrior two. Shorten your stance quite a bit, angling your back toes towards the front of the mat, and windmill the right arm forward and the left arm back. Reaching forward, coming into revolved triangle, lowering your right fingertips to your shin. And you can have your left arm at your hip, or you can open up towards the ceiling. Opening up to triangle towards the right. Lifting yourself back up to standing. Bring your hands to your hips. Parallel the feet to one another. Reaching through the crown of the head and folding forward from the hip creases with a flat back, keeping micro bends in the knees. And releasing the head and shoulders in this wide-legged forward fold. Releasing your hands to the mat. Placing your left hand under your forehead and opening up towards the right for a twist. Placing your right hand under your forehead, opening up towards the left for a twist. And lower the left arm back down. Bring your hands to your hips, ground through the feet as you slowly come all the way up with a flat back. Making your way into Warrior Two on the other side. Reaching forward, lowering your knee to your thigh, extended side angle, opening up the chest. And flowing through Reverse Warrior and extended side angle at your own pace. Meeting in Warrior Two. Shorten your stance as you prepare for Revolved Triangle. Shifting your left arm forward, right arm back, reaching forward, lowering the left fingertips to your shin. Right hand can be at your hip, or you can extend it up towards the ceiling. And opening up to triangle. Lift yourself back up to standing. Pivot your hands down to the mat, step back to downward dog. Lower your knees to the mat, untuck your toes, taking child's pose. Lifting the hips, tuck the toes. Send the hips back to downward dog. Walking the hands to meet the feet in forward fold. Reaching up towards the ceiling. And turning around to face the top of the mat in Tadasana. Upward salute, forward fold. Halfway lift, back to fold. Plant your hands on the mat, step back to plank. Take a flow of your choice. And meet in downward dog. Lift the left leg, setting up for Warrior Two, windmilling the arms up, gaze forward. Reaching the arms forward, lowering your elbow to your thigh, right hand to your hip. You can stay here or you can reach for the mat in front of you. If you're here, you can take a half bind. And if it's in your practice, go ahead and take the full bind. Still opening up the chest towards the ceiling, grounding through the outer edge of the back foot. Beautiful job, wherever you are. Coming out the way we came, lower your left hand back to the mat, bringing your right hand to your hip, and lifting back up to Warrior Two. Flip the front palm, reverse your warrior. Windmill the hands back down to the mat. Step back to downward dog. Lift the right leg. Plant the feet and windmill the arms up to Warrior Two. Reaching forward, elbow to thigh, left hand on your hip. You can stay here or you can lower your left hand to the mat, taking the half bind. And if it's in your practice, go ahead and take the full bind. really engaging the core to help keep you lifted. And coming out the way we came, lowering your right hand back to the mat, left hand to your hip, and lifting back up to warrior two. Flip the front palm, reverse your warrior. Windmill the arms down to the mat, step back to downward dog. Lower your knees to the mat, untuck your toes, send the hips back to child's pose. Reaching your arms out in front, lift the hips, tuck the toes, downward dog, and float or step to the top of the mat. Reaching up towards the ceiling, drawing your hands to heart center. And sitting back into chair pose with your hands at heart center. Shifting the weight into your left leg, stepping back with the right to high lunge, reaching your arms up towards the ceiling. Shifting the left arm forward, right arm back to twist. Back to center. Bring your hands to your hips and slowly walk the back foot in as you hinge forward from the hip creases, lifting the back foot off the mat, coming into warrior three. Creating one line from the top of your head through your back heel. Hands can be at heart center, they can be back behind you or out in front, whatever you prefer. Keeping a micro bend in the standing leg, grounding through the three corners of the foot, core engaged, hips facing the mat. Amazing job, you guys got this. Grounding through the foot as you slowly come back up to standing, hugging the right knee in towards the chest, flexing into the foot, drawing the shoulder blades down the back, and reaching the right arm back for a twist. Great job, coming back to center, lower your right foot to the mat, bring your hands to heart center, sitting back into chair pose. Shift the weight into the right foot, stepping back with the left foot to high lunge, arms overhead. Right arm forward, left arm back, coming into a twist. Back to center, hands at heart center, and lifting the back leg off the mat to warrior three, taking whichever arm position you prefer. Really zipping up towards the midline, reaching through the crown of the head, stomping back through your heel. And slowly coming back up to standing, hugging the left knee into the chest, flexing your foot. And reaching the left arm back to twist. Coming back to center, lower the left knee down to the left foot down to the mat. Reach up towards the ceiling and fold forward. Grasping opposite elbows, ragdolling from the hip creases side to side. And release. Halfway lift. Back to fold. Bending the knees as much as you need to. This time to place one hand and then the other underneath the feet so that your toes are coming towards your wrist crease. Giving your hands a nice little massage. Release one hand and then the other. Step back to plank. Take a flow of your choice. And meet in downward dog. Lift the left leg to three-legged dog. Plant the left foot on the mat. And walk your left foot out to the edge of the mat, so bringing both hands to the inside as we prepare for lizard pose. Keeping your left knee stacked over your ankle and lowering your back knee to the mat, untucking your toes. And you can settle here, or you can lower your forearms to the mat if that is more comfortable for you. Bringing your right hand right underneath your forehead and opening up towards the left to twist. Walk the left foot back to center, framing the foot with your hands. Tuck the back toes, lift the knee, send the left leg back to three-legged dog, lower the toes back down to the mat, and lift your right leg. Planting your right foot, walking it out towards the edge of the mat, bringing both hands to the inside of the leg. Lower the back knee and untuck the back toes, settling in to lizard pose. You can be up on the hands or you can lower down onto your forearms. Planting your left hand underneath your forehead, opening up towards the right. And walking your right knee back to center, framing the foot with your hands. Tuck the back toes, lift the knee. Send the right leg back to three-legged dog. Lower your toes down to the mat. Lower your knees down to the mat, untuck your toes, send the hips back to child's pose. Bringing your arms down by your sides and resting your forehead on the mat. Coming back to the breath. Reach your arms out in front of you. Lift the hips and make your way into a seat with your legs stretched out in front of you in Dandasana, staff pose. Flexing through the feet, reaching through the crown of the head, shoulder blades gliding down the back, shoulders stacked over hips, and folding forward in any amount. Coming back up. Bend the left knee, plant the left foot on the other side of the right knee. So your left knee is pointing up towards the ceiling. Hover the fingertips above the mat, lengthening through the spine and twisting over to the left. Crossing your right arm over your left thigh, lightly tenting your left fingertips by your side, keeping the chin over the chest in half Lord of the Fishes pose. Coming back to center, uncross the legs. Bend the right knee, plant the right foot on the other side of the left knee. Hovering the fingertips, lengthen through the spine and twist over to the right. Keeping the chin over your chest. Coming back to center, uncross the legs. And reach your arms out in front of you as you slowly lower all the way down onto your back. Placing the soles of the feet against one another, knees coming out wide. Supta Baddha Konasana, reclined bound angle. Your heels can be closer or farther away from your sits bones, whatever's most comfortable. Arms down by your sides. Use your hands to guide your legs closed, planting your feet on the mat. Lift your right leg up towards the ceiling, externally rotate at the hip, crossing your right ankle over your left thigh. Interlacing your hands around the left thigh, drawing it in towards the chest, flexing both feet. And if you'd like, you can nudge your right thigh away from your body with your right elbow. Coming into this supine pigeon figure 4. Release your leg, lower your foot back down to the mat, uncross your legs. Lifting the left leg up towards the ceiling, externally rotate at the hip, crossing your left ankle over your right thigh, interlacing your hands around the right thigh, drawing it in towards the chest, both feet flexed. Lower your foot back down to the mat, uncross your legs, windshield wiper your legs from side to side. Meet back at center. Widen your feet to be mat width apart, knees resting in the center, and lowering your knees over towards the right for a traction twist. Gaze up towards the ceiling. If you want, you can bring your right foot on top of your left thigh to deepen the stretch. And if you'd like, you can bring your gaze over your left shoulder. Bring the gaze back to center. Bring the knees back to center, pausing for a moment. And slowly lowering your knees over to the left. Option 2, place your left foot on top of your right thigh. Option 2, gaze over your right shoulder. Bring the gaze back to center, bring the legs back to center. Extending your legs long on the mat with your arms down by your sides. Allowing the feet to splay to the sides. Allowing the gaze to soften or the eyes to close. Releasing any tension in the jaw. Releasing any tension in the shoulders, in the hands, in the hips, in the knees, in the feet, and settling into your Shavasana. Starting to bring awareness back into the body, wiggling the fingers and the toes, drawing circles with the wrists and the ankles, reaching your arms overhead for a full body stretch, and using your arm as a pillow as you roll onto your right side. Pressing your hands into the mat to lift yourself back up to a seat with your palms together at heart center. Feel free to repeat after me. Namaste. All right. Thank you so much for joining me for yoga this evening. Again, my name is Julia, and I hope you have a great rest of your night.